Okay guys, it's that time again where I'm going to talk about Hellsing, and this time I'm going to give you kind of an overall review of the entire series. I'm going to be avoiding most of the gigantic spoilers to the best of my ability, but as always, if you would like to go into Hellsing knowing absolutely nothing, then I would recommend saving this video for later. Hellsing is a dark horror action series by Kota Hirano. It's a series that has vampires, Nazis, Nazi vampires, bayonet-wielding regenerating warriors of God, an androgynous werewolf, and one of the most badass and overpowered protagonists that you'll ever see in Alucard. Now this is going to be a review of the manga, however I do want to say that this is one of those rare instances where I would actually recommend the anime over the manga. The reason being is that not only is it a perfect adaptation with no filler, but with the combination of the score, the visceral action, and the voice acting, I just think that Hellsing works so goddamn good in animation. But I am talking only about the anime series called Hellsing Ultimate. See, there was an original anime series just called Hellsing, but after the first few episodes it kind of trails off and makes up its own storyline. Hellsing Ultimate is like the Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood fix to that. It's Hellsing but without the filler and following the manga perfectly. Hellsing Ultimate actually adapts all 10 volumes of the manga into 10 episodes, each episode being as long as it needs to be to adapt that volume. The final episode is like 90 minutes, which is pretty much its own movie. It's also animated by Studio Madhouse, and they do a brilliant job at it. Also for me personally, Crispin Freeman, who does the English voice acting of Alucard, is my personal favorite voice acting performance of all time. I think he absolutely nails the character, and I cannot read Alucard in the manga without hearing his voice.
Summon up your familiars. Transform your body. Heal your severed legs and stand. The evening is still so young.
So yeah, just throwing it out there again, Hellsing Ultimate is the version that you want to watch. So disclaimer for Hellsing, this is a seinen manga and this is a series that kind of basks in its own genre of horror and action, meaning that the violence is absolutely out of control, violence, language, sexual abuse is in there as well. I wouldn't say that it goes as dark as maybe Berserk because there's a little bit more of a detachment of the emotional side when it comes to the horrific things in this manga. But I'd still put a mild trigger warning on it if blood, guts, and sexual violence is something that you'd rather avoid in your life. But also remember your main character is a vicious vampire, and we are fighting basically undead Nazis here, so what did you expect? Hellsing, the title, refers to the name of the organization in the manga that combats supernatural entities that threaten England and the world, primarily vampires and ghouls. It's led by a woman named Integra, who serves as a dynamic and oftentimes harsh leader who is forced to make many of the hard choices for the greater good. As in, Hellsing isn't a goody-goody by-the-book, law-abiding organization at all times. Not to mention Hellsing's greatest asset in fighting monsters and creatures of the night comes in the form of our protagonist, Alucard. And Alucard is the main reason for reading this series. Alucard is pretty much one of the most appealing main characters of any manga. Maybe it's his swag, maybe it's his dual wielding of his guns, maybe it's that he laughs in the face of danger, or maybe it's the fact that he is essentially just as, if not more vicious than the monsters that he hunts down. Yes, Alucard is a vampire, ancient and primal, a complete force of nature. And yes, I would consider him evil, just by his very nature and by the things that he finds enjoyment in. Without giving away any spoilers, I'll just say that Alucard works for Hellsing out of a feeling of loyalty due to something that happened within his past. But he has the free will to do whatever he wants as well. It's an interesting dynamic that looks into his mindset. Whereas Alucard at his maximum strength could annihilate virtually anything in sight, it's kind of fun for him to place restrictions upon himself to challenge his own strength and to try to find worthy opponents that will allow him to eventually unleash his full power. When I say Alucard is loyal to Hellsing, what I really mean is he is loyal to Integra herself specifically, willing to obey her whims and joyously kill for whenever she requests it. He understands the mission at hand with Hellsing and the organization, but he gets benefit out of hunting down these creatures of the night and battling them, often getting himself more and more excited the more powerful his enemies are, and the more that you disappoint him with your lack of strength, the more he punishes you. How great for a battle-fueled monster than to have a job that requires hunting down other monsters. It's a win-win. And don't think that just because he may inadvertently fight on the side of good, that he's not willing to kill humans that stand in his way. Alucard is through and through a vampire, and he embraces his nature as such, oftentimes gleefully basking in the blood-soaked carnage. There's deeper aspects of Alucard that are revealed about his past, how he became a vampire, and how he feels about humans that choose losing themselves to a higher or darker power, as opposed to choosing to remain human. As you can imagine, for a being that's been alive for hundreds upon hundreds of years, and has the souls of all the victims that he sucked dry within him, that he has several layers of complexity that he doesn't just allow anybody to see. To have your protagonist be such a wild card of a character is impressive to me, because you never know just how he's going to react next, and you know he has the power to tear down just about anything that's in front of him, and yet he doesn't become a boring character. People often complain about characters like Superman or Saitama not having a challenge because they're so overpowered. Well, Alucard is incredibly overpowered, and yet the story allows us to explore what that even means, to Alucard himself and to the world around him. And what can we do with a creature, a demonic being like that, walking the earth? Some other characters that are important to mention are Ceres, a police girl turned vampire by Alucard himself, a character with some intense repressed trauma, and a good portion of the manga is actually focused on her struggle of that, both of acknowledging the horrible memories that she had buried in the past, and the new world awaiting her once she embraces her vampire self. She also happens to be one of the cutest and most badass waifus out there, and I don't think she gets enough love in the anime community. Walter is a butler for Integra who has been working for Hellsing for most of his life, and even though he is human, he is considered an extremely deadly individual, and in his prime, perhaps rivaled some of the strongest monsters that are out there. And finally, working for a completely separate organization that essentially does the same thing as Hellsing, but are rivals, an organization called Iscariot, Vatican Section 13, a secret organization of the Vatican itself named after Judas Iscariot, basically meaning that they are willing to be the villain for the greater good. As in, Jesus wouldn't have been able to be sacrificed if not for Judas's betrayal, so it's kind of in that vein. Anyway, the main character from this organization that we see in the series is Alexander Anderson, a bayonet-wielding regenerator. Human, and though it's not really explained all that well, he's supposed to be genetically modified in some way, and was kind of built to be a weapon of God to fight against monsters.
I kick ass for the Lord!
Yeah, that's basically Anderson in a nutshell. He can regenerate from practically anything, and he is determined to destroy all demonic entities in his path. Hating Hellsing for employing something as evil as Alucard within their ranks, Iscariot denounces them and views them all as enemies as well. The series overall is relatively short, about 10 volumes worth of manga like I said, so it's a semi-quick read. For the first 1 or 2 volumes, it kind of introduces you into the world and the organizations, as well as filling you in on the vampire lore, but then it smacks you right in the face with the overall storyline that literally has a revival of Nazi Germany and them employing several modified vampire fighters and assassins into their ranks to bring back war. The Millennium Organization, with a major theme of their struggle being to get rid of Alucard and to pit England into chaos. And of course, something this large scale and intimidating makes Alucard laugh his ass off with excitement. I will say I find the side antagonists of the Millennium Group to be way more exciting than the primary antagonist, just known as the Major. He often drones on and waxes poetically about how much he loves war, and that's basically it. He wants to restart war on Earth and claims that war is sort of like the ultimate purpose of humanity anyway. You could call them remnants of Nazi Germany, but calling them straight up Nazis wouldn't 100% be true. They're not really in any affiliation with them, it's just simply about war. Were it up to him, there would be no victor. It would just go on and on endlessly until everybody kills each other off. And pretty much he has the resources, funding, and enough supernatural beings on his side to pull it off. The series trudges on forward until all of the players are on the battlefield and are able to interact, and it truly is a world of violence and chaos. So are there any deep themes or ideas explored herein, or is it just a dark, violent manga for the sake of edge? Well, a little bit of both. Again, I don't want to get into spoilers, but there are reasons why Alucard desires a worthy opponent to unleash his full strength onto that kind of has to do with the decisions about why he was made to become a vampire in the first place. There's an interesting conversation to be had about humanity's strength compared to the strength of not only darkness, but of the light as well. How far you can throw yourself into an ideology before you lose yourself to it completely. As well as I mentioned before with the character of Ceres, there's a great segment about her facing her past traumas and pulling forward, accepting a new way of life, ascending as it were. Now overall, I would say that Hellsing is an extremely fun ride from start to finish. It's not that long of a series and it offers you incredible action and the absolute magnitude of badassery that is Alucard himself. Hellsing was actually one of the first manga I ever read when I was a teenager, and it remains one of my top favorites of all time. Granted, some of that is nostalgia bias, but even so, if you love horror, monsters, vampire, the war between good and evil, and epic apocalyptic battle type stuff, then this is the manga for you. My only gripes would be one, I wish it was longer. Technically it only has one story to tell, or one arc if you will, and with the characters at hand, there could have been more arcs included. But then again, maybe with the way that Alucard is overpowered, the mangaka decided to keep it short and sweet and not wear out its welcome. I would also say that even though it doesn't bother me personally, there are times when the over-the-top violence does go a little too, well, over the top. Now, if you follow my channel and read things like Berserk and Gantz and things like that, it's probably not going to bother you, but just something to mention. Also, don't forget if you're more of an anime person, check out Hellsing Ultimate the anime, because it's absolutely incredible. Also, by the way, Dark Horse is now currently releasing deluxe hardcover editions of the Hellsing manga, 3 volumes in 1, just like they did with the Berserk releases. They're a little bit pricey, but if you're a fan of collecting manga, and also I think the individual volumes have been out of print for a while, so if you want to collect the physical media, Hellsing Ultimate Deluxe Editions, they're out there. Anyways guys, let me know what you think about Hellsing as a series, and especially about Alucard as a main character. Put your thoughts, theories, and comments about Hellsing down below, and would you like to see a revival of Hellsing at some point? I think that would be cool. Other than that guys, as always, thank you for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate the support on all of these videos. Please give it a like and comment down below because it does help in the algorithm. Also check out the links in the description for my Twitter, Instagram, Discord, and Patreon link. If you want to support the channel on that extra level, there are a few perks on Patreon if you want to check it out. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you in the next video.